Who's that one celebrity that has like no haters? Andre the Giant. I was fortunate enough to catch a screening of The Princess Bride in Nashville a couple of years ago. Carrie Held, who plays the love interest, was there after the show and told some stories about working with different cast members. When he got to Andre, he recounted how he was the mood maker of the cast and always had a smile on his face. He even broke his foot during one of the last scenes but powered through it because the other actors had been filming all day and wanted to go home. A real shame that he passed away so prematurely. Someone probably commented this already, but Mr. Rogers, Fred McFeely Rogers, the GOAT, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aired for 895 episodes and helped 2-3 generations of children better understand the world they were living in when sometimes there was nobody at home to give them any love and attention. Man was a saint, no skeletons in the closet. Almost single-handedly got adequate congressional funding for PBS, increased from $9 million to $22 million, had everyone from the far left to the far right going yeah, he's pretty cool. I hope one day I may succeed in being 1/10th as loving and kind as Mr. Rogers. Tom Hanks, even Weird Al referenced it in his North Korea polka. Would you think this through for a moment, please? Now why would you bomb our nice celebrities? Why in the world would you kill Tom Hanks? Cause nobody doesn't like Tom Hanks. Daniel Trejo, he's a convicted drug felon who served time in Alcatraz, came out and decided to keep up his act through AA/NA before going on to help other young kids struggling with substances and the pursuit of a criminal lifestyle. Even on set, he's called out actors like Tom Cruise who insist on performing their own stunts as selfish because it completely shuts down production. He forces people on an unpaid hiatus if the stunt ends up injuring the actor. Yeah, he plays a bad motherfucker, but behind the camera he's a stand-up guy trying to help his community. Zendaya, Maggie Smith, Hugh Jackman, Steve Irwin, Jack Black, Dave Grohl and Bob Ross all seem absolutely impossible to hate. Zendaya in particular is a hill I'm willing to die on, and that's totally not because I have the biggest crush ever on her, which I clearly don't. Obvious honorable mention to Keanu Reeves, but he's not even human anymore at this point. I figured we were letting God himself out of this conversation. Eddie Van Halen, the guitar hero. Many people have said that he always had a smile on his face, and he was always ready and happy to play. Kurt Cobain, he had a major effect on many people's lives. He was a supporter of different women's rights movements, so that would definitely give him a lot of fans. And he always had a good sense of humor. He also stood by his principles, which resulted in a feud between Guns N' Roses and Nirvana, because Guns N' Roses stood for everything that Nirvana was against, but that was eventually ended. Both of them died way too early. Tom Petty was super cool. If anyone hated him, they can get off this planet cause they are obviously aliens. When filming Postman, one of my friends growing up and her family were extras. Her dad supplied Tom with weed while he was there. Haha. Her little sister though. So, little sister Sarah had these hillbilly parents, so of course she knew who Tom Petty was. Even at 4 years old, she was with the other extras and saw him and got excited, running over to meet him. His bodyguards blocked her. Tom was like, WTF, she's just a little girl. And she knows who I am. I'm flattered. Let her through. They spent a couple hours in a lawn chair on top of the dam. That's where they built the town, sitting together, and he was basically helping her learn to read his lines as he practiced them, sounding words out for her and moving his finger on the page. He was one cool man. Keanu Reeves, I feel like he caught a lot of shit and hate when he first started acting because he was dry and emotionless. Then The Matrix came out and I thought he was perfect for that role. Years passed and nobody heard anything about him. Then boom, John fucking Wick came out and everyone I know was loving him because of that movie. Dr. Keanu Reeves had haters. Now I don't think he does accuse of John Wick. Danny DeVito saved the life of a 13-year-old, who says he's an adult now, that he was suicidal from the abuse he was enduring at a boarding school. On a ski trip, he was on a lift and DeVito, who sat next to him, noticed something was wrong and offered support, referencing the abuse he almost endured at a Catholic school. This guy says everyone ignored his cry for help, but DeVito saw a defeated teenager and was the first person to listen to him and believe him. Stampy Long knows, whether you watched him as a child or not, everyone in the Messiah community is at least okay with him. Personally, I love him and he holds a lot of memories, but it's really brilliant to see that the only two controversies he's been in is Lee Bearer's arrest. I think that's what happened, and when he supposedly cheated. 10/10. Love the gay. If you can consider late A. P. J. Abdul Kalam, aerospace scientist / former president of India, a celebrity, then he is the one I would name. He has done wonders for the development of the country in his field, and he was a very respectable person. An absolute angel. I can't think of a reason anyone would hate him if they knew who he was. Sadly, he left the earth too soon. Fun fact: Abdul Kalam refused to use bodyguards during his presidency because he believed he was just like any other citizen of the country. In the scene where they were ascending the cliff, they were hoisted by a rope and Wallace Shawn Vizzini was securely harnessed to Andre. Wallace was really freaked out about the height, but Andre calmed him by telling him to keep looking at Andre. Another anecdote: Andre always insisted on paying for dinners, no matter who he was with. One time he was out with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold got up to attempt to hand his card to the waiter. Andre wasn't having it. He physically picked up Arnold and deposited him back in his seat. Leo. Quite amazing. Tons of girlfriends who you'd think would be either somewhat bitter or talk about him privately. Probably has an ironclad NDA, parties a lot, so you'd think he'd be susceptible to having bad judgment, constantly churns out good movies, stays off social media outside of environmental causes, not political, no on-set blow-ups, just nothing. Just a quintessential Hollywood prince, not to mention a childhood actor, so even more impressive. I know no one asked what someone that has haters but shouldn't would be Angelina Jolie, outside of being a prolific actress and a pretty good director, or directress. She is also ridiculously involved in helping the world. I mean, most halfway decent celebrities will donate to charities or set up fundraisers or whatever, but she is literally the goodwill ambassador for the United Nations to help refugees and people suffering around the world. She literally adopted orphans from around the world and became a pilot just to impress them. She overcame drug addiction and her absent father. If you hate her because some guy cheated on a girl from your favorite shitty sitcom with her, then you got some issues. Get over it. N'Golo Kant is probably one of the few soccer players in activity with basically no haters. Others either from the present or the past are Roberto Baggio, Javier Zanetti, Paolo Maldini, Alan Shearer, Matthew Letizia, maybe except for Portsmouth supporters, Ronaldinho, Eric Abidal, Mr. Rogers, Henry Winkler, Tom Hanks, and of course Neil Peart. I have not heard or seen one negative comment about the professor, even from people who wanted to destroy their auditory ossicles whenever they heard a Rush song. Back in the days of the old Yahoo message boards, Van Halen was a troll-proof subject. We could invite them and they wouldn't show up. It was really weird. There is this Swedish YouTuber called Mac or Mustiga Mori. Literally no one hates him. When he meets people in his videos he always brings out the best of them and bonds with them very well. Patrick Stewart. I love everything about that man. His acting, his personality, everything. This was cemented for me when I've heard him talking to fans about their experiences with abuse etc. The man is pure class and an absolutely amazing actor, especially his more thespian roles. A very positive role model. If I could have a pint and a chat with anyone in the world I think it would be him. He just seems so wholesome. Bob Ross, Keanu Reeves, Mr. Rogers, Steve Irwin. I've never heard of someone hating them. The problem is, a lot of people, myself included, hate their fanbase. I see so many people who regard them as the best thing since the invention of fire, which annoys me to no end and which in turn makes me have a worse opinion of those celebrities even though they haven't done anything wrong, that I know of. Robin Williams' top pick for actors that have passed. Hugh Jackman for still living. Anyone who hates on them. Why? Robin Williams was always so pure and a good guy. Jackman is awesome, guys love him as Wolverine and women go gaga over him in general. Anytime I've ever seen a video of Hugh Jackman interacting with other people he always seems like the nicest guy with nothing bad to say about anything. And he is humble. When asked about his bod I remember him saying something like it's easy when a studio pays you to go to a gym and hires you an elite personal trainer. I feel like everyone loves Dante Bosco. His voice is so pleasant and it was a prominent part of a lot of people's childhoods. Plus, he seems like a genuinely nice guy. He often participates in Sutara Week. He'll engage with fans, lend his voice acting talent to fan-made animations, and even recite poetry. I know the pairing and conversations around it are usually contentious, but I just think it's really sweet how he embraces the role and his supporters. N'Golo Kant. The dude is so humble and cheerful that it's impossible to dislike him. He came from nothing but he worked so hard and now look where he's. He's literally on top of the football world, soccer for Americans, yet celebrity didn't influence him one bit. He stayed the same respectful, kind person. One of my favorite anecdotes about him is that he once missed his train. A fan saw him and proposed to him to come have dinner in his house with his friends, which he accepted. He's most likely the most liked football player in the world actually. Hahaha, every time I see him I can't stop thinking about that interview, in Spanish, when he spoke about how once in Argentina, an angry football mob confused him as a fan of the other team and screamed to him, "You stupid actor, wear the ring and disappear." Definitely Donald J. Trump. He's amazing, great entrepreneur, amazing diplomat, caring and loving father. He uses English in a proper way, almost Shakespearean. He has an amazing skin tone. He is fit AF. He is a Pope master. He saved the digital world, etc. I can keep up for hours. Joke aside, I think for me at least no one is haters free. Someone would always find something to hate about the celebrity or not famous person is just human nature. I mean, we judge ourselves by the skin color and place of birth. That's so outrageous for me. Ranboo has very few haters. As far as I know, the only thing remotely close to a controversy he's ever been in is when his YouTubes went out of stock, which it was going to do no matter what and wasn't something he could control. As such, was nowhere near his fault or even his problem, but some people still got mad over it. Only like 10 max though, a very weak minority lol. They've all done or said something to piss someone off. The internet will find out. I'm looking at you, Keanu. What was the one bad day that one person came up to you at the wrong time and you didn't make them feel breathtaking? What did you do, Keanu? I really hope the internet leaves him the fuck alone. Mr. Rogers. Steve Irwin, and Bob Ross are all notorious for just having absolutely who dislikes them. Thought there should be some others in that group. Bill Nye. Don't ever think I've heard a bad thing about him outside of edgy morons, and even the others have those types of stupid fuckers. JFK. I think this may be one of the few presidents that has gone down in history well. The only other person I can think of is maybe Teddy Roosevelt, and I haven't done the research to see if that's true. Hayao Miyazaki. Although Ghibli's a pretty shitty group in terms of free use, and Hayao may be slow for an animator, he's old, and I don't see much about him being a shitty person. That may be due to a lack of research, though. He seems to just overall be liked. Jackie Chan. Dude's been a really cool person overall, even after his top stardom. He's a legitimately good person who I've heard literally zero hate about. Keanu Reeves. Often gets slumped in with Rogers, Irwin, and Ross, for good reason. Dude's a legitimately good person even in his stardom. He just handles it well. Rowan Atkinson. Dude's a really good Mr. Bean. Wish he was known for more. This was rushed. I don't know all too much about these people. Don't shoot me unless any of this is legit wrong. Aidan Turner. He isn't that famous yet and has a small fan base. He played Keely in The Hobbits, a vampire in Being Human, and Ross in Poldark. He is a good-looking and friendly man. He is charming in the interviews, and most of his fan base are elderly women in their 50s and 60s. Ryan Reynolds. I heard a lot of people say things out of jealousy because of his looks, talent, beautiful wife, but I have never heard anyone say they hate him. Dude is like a golden retriever in human form. Daniel Day-Lewis. For a guy who can easily play a villain and still be likable and still just quietly goes about being famous, I don't think I've ever met anyone who didn't like him, unless I've missed something, which is entirely possible. Lee Jun, better known as or Lee Jae-gam. She's known as Korea's little sister whose music can calm people since they're slow, and she is such a compassionate and caring person who has made friends with many other Korean entertainment stars. Professor McGonagall is the most underrated Harry Potter character in the series. She is so funny, even when she is strictly serious, but I mostly praise Maggie Smith for her line delivery in general. I don't know if athletes count as celebrities, but Chelsea footballer N'Golo Kante is right up there, worth millions and has won pretty much every major trophy you can win. The man drives a second-hand Mini Cooper. He also helped France win the World Cup and was so shy to hold the trophy that his teammates practically forced it on him. Another time he missed his Euro train back to London after a game and met some fans at the mosque, who invited him to eat dinner and play FIFA and watch the football match highlights at their house. Endless other acts of genuine humbleness, that even usually hostile rival fans just love the guy to bits. I once read an article, about 8 years ago, that said something to the effect that, at most, we can only hope to have 80% of the people who know us, or of us, that has a positive opinion about us. Even the most positive people have significant amounts of people who could not have a favorable opinion of them. I wish I could find that article again though. Steve Carell. Not only an incredible actor, but genuinely seems like the nicest guy on the planet. I am currently listening to the podcast The Office Deep Dive by Brian Baumgartner, actor who plays Kevin. He shares his in-depth interviews with almost anyone who had anything to do with the show, and the overwhelming consensus is that Steve is a legitimately amazing human being. Virtually everyone started to get emotional talking about him. In his actual interview with Steve, you can tell how much he cares about people and see himself as just another guy. It's incredibly wholesome. I don't recall anyone ever particularly hating on Sir Patrick Stewart, excluding the beginning of Star Trek TNG. His castmates didn't like his stiff, businesslike, and sometimes rude demeanor, but they broke him of that. Everyone said Patrick was great after that. Also, related since they're best friends, I also don't think I've ever seen hate directed at Sir Ian Coven, either.